For years, Silicon Valley celebrated the story of Theranos as the ultimate tale of innovation, disruption, and visionary genius. Elizabeth Holmes, the company's young founder, stood at the center of this admiration, hailed as the next Steve Jobs and praised as a revolutionary force in healthcare. But beneath the glowing headlines and billion-dollar valuations was a reality built not on science but on illusion. The downfall of Theranos became one of the most dramatic implosions in modern business history, a scandal that destroyed fortunes, damaged lives, and revealed just how fragile trust becomes when ambition outruns truth. Elizabeth Holmes. Elizabeth Holmes was born in 1984 into a family with deep political and corporate influence. From an early age, she embraced the idea that she was destined to create something world-changing. She admired innovators like Steve Jobs and adopted many traits associated with him, including the iconic black turtleneck she would eventually make part of her personal brand. When she enrolled at Stanford University to study chemical engineering, her professors saw her as ambitious, determined, and eager to make a mark. Within a year, Holmes dropped out of Stanford at 19, convinced that traditional education would slow down the groundbreaking company she intended to build. That company became Theranos, a name crafted from the words therapy and diagnosis. Holmes claimed she could reinvent blood testing with a device that required only a fingertip's worth of blood to run hundreds of laboratory tests. She spoke in a deep, controlled voice that many believed she practiced to project authority, and she carried herself with the confidence of a visionary who understood the future better than anyone else. Investors, journalists, and global leaders fell under her spell, and by 2014, Theranos was valued at $9 billion. Holmes, still only 30 years old, became the youngest self-made female billionaire on the planet with a personal net worth estimated at $4.5 billion. Behind the success story, however, nothing was as it seemed. Revolutionizing healthcare with a drop of blood. The world desperately wanted to believe in Holmes's invention. She claimed that with a single drop of blood, her technology could deliver fast, accurate results for hundreds of medical conditions, all without the discomfort of traditional blood draws. The idea appealed to patients, retailers, investors, and regulators. Walgreens quickly partnered with Theranos to open testing centers in its stores. Safeway invested heavily in building clinics around what they believed would be a transformational breakthrough. Politicians and military officials believed the technology could even be used on the battlefield. Holmes's charm, confidence, and relentless messaging amplified the fantasy. She spoke consistently about her dream of empowering patients and transforming diagnostics. She appeared on magazine covers, delivered keynote speeches, and received prestigious awards. Every step reinforced the narrative that Theranos was the next great American invention. But the technology at the heart of Theranos, the much-praised Edison machine, did not work. It was unreliable, inconsistent, and unable to perform even a fraction of the tests the company claimed. Rather than slowing down or admitting limitations, Holmes doubled down on secrecy and control. Employees were restricted from speaking to each other across departments, and anyone who questioned the technology faced threats, firings, or intimidation. Investors were never allowed to see the device in action, often reassured with vague explanations about protecting trade secrets. The foundation of Theranos was not medical innovation, it was deception. How Theranos fooled everyone. Theranos succeeded for so long because its culture was built to hide the truth. Internal teams were compartmentalized, preventing scientists from understanding how the device was actually being used. Instead of running tests through their own machines, Theranos quietly used standard laboratory equipment made by established companies such as Siemens. These commercial machines produced the real results, while Theranos marketed the illusion that the Edison device was behind the accuracy. Holmes also surrounded herself with powerful advisors who lacked medical or scientific expertise, but brought political prestige. Former secretaries of state, decorated military officials, and global influencers sat on the board, giving the company immense credibility despite its lack of transparency. The myth of Holmes as a genius became so strong that questioning her claims felt almost like questioning the future of innovation itself. With investors eager not to miss out on the next Apple or Google, due diligence often took a back seat to enthusiasm. But while investors lost money, it was the patients who paid the highest price. Theranos's unreliable results misdiagnosed conditions ranging from thyroid disorders to cancer. Some patients were wrongly told they were pregnant, while others received terrifying results about life-threatening diseases. The consequences were emotional, financial, and in some cases, medically dangerous. The investigation that shattered the fantasy. In 2015, Wall Street Journal reporter John Kerry Rowe received a tip that something inside Theranos was deeply wrong. Over the next several months, Kerry Rowe carefully pieced together accounts from whistleblowers, leaked documents, and former employees who had witnessed the dysfunction and dishonesty firsthand. His investigation culminated in a groundbreaking exposé that shattered the carefully constructed image Holmes had spent years building. The video revealed that Theranos had misled patients, partners, and investors. It disclosed that the company was secretly running most tests on traditional machines rather than its own device, and that the Edison machine produced dangerously inaccurate results. Holmes responded with aggressive denials, public relations campaigns, and legal attacks designed to discredit the reporting. But as regulators began their own investigations, the truth became impossible to hide. Theranos unraveled quickly. Walgreens severed ties, federal agencies launched criminal investigations, and the company's valuation disintegrated. By 2018, Theranos ceased operations entirely. Employees lost their jobs, investors lost billions, and the promise Holmes once sold to the world collapsed completely. The human and financial fallout. The collapse of Theranos left a trail of victims whose stories underscored the gravity of the fraud. Patients described moments of panic after receiving false medical results, including one woman who was wrongly told she had miscarried. Investors, including high-profile figures such as Rupert Murdoch and the Walton family, watched fortunes disappear. Murdoch alone lost $125 million. Employees spoke about the pressure and fear they endured as they worked inside a company where questioning leadership was treated as betrayal. Theranos was not simply a failed startup. It was a dangerous experiment conducted on real people under the guise of innovation. The trials and sentences. In 2022, after a long legal battle, Elizabeth Holmes was convicted of multiple counts of fraud and conspiracy. She received an 11-year federal prison sentence, later reduced to 9 years based on behavior and legal adjustments. She reported to a minimum security federal prison camp in Texas in 2023. Sunny Balwani, her former partner and second-in-command, was sentenced to 12 years for his involvement in the scheme. Holmes's life now is a far cry from the billionaire executive she once portrayed. Reports say she spends her days performing prison duties, working in the library, and occasionally offering informal business advice to inmates. She receives visits from her partner, Billy Evans, and their young children. Holmes has described the pain of watching her children leave after visits as heartbreaking, yet she continues to express only partial responsibility for the scandal. Lessons from a scandal that shocked the world. The Theranos scandal remains one of the most cautionary tales in modern business. It exposed how easily polished storytelling can overshadow scientific reality when investors are hungry for the next big breakthrough. It demonstrated that charisma can mask incompetence, that secrecy can disguise failure, and that in the world of healthcare, false promises carry life-or-death consequences. The downfall of Theranos forced regulators, investors, and medical professionals to reevaluate how they evaluate early-stage healthcare innovations. It prompted conversations about corporate governance, ethical leadership, and the dangers of fake-it-until-you-make-it culture. It reminded the world that even the most compelling vision cannot replace verifiable evidence. And that brings us to the end of one of the most unbelievable stories in Silicon Valley history. If you found this video eye-opening, informative, or just downright shocking, make sure to hit that like and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.